What's up everyone and welcome back to another video. In this video, I'll be reviewing both versions of the Realtoy KLM 747 models, and this includes both the retro livery from the 1990s and the newer livery 747. So both of these models I had gotten off of eBay. The older livery, I actually unboxed this model a little over a year ago. I got it for Christmas in 2022 for around $40. I got the playset new condition. And the newer livery 747 I actually got more recently. It is a newer addition to my collection, and I have not included it in any videos yet. So this model, I gotten it used off of eBay for around, I think it was around $15. I gotten it off of eBay a couple months ago, and unfortunately, I do not have the box for it, but it is still in pretty good condition. Does have some minor scratches on it, but otherwise it is still in pretty good condition. So both of these models are these are the only two KLM 747 models that were made in both the older livery and then the newer livery. So the older livery is definitely a model that is not as well known. I actually included this model in a video not too long ago where I had gone over, I think it was 10 models of my collection, where I had pretty much just shown ones I think deserve to be more well known by collectors and should be more recognized because they are really nice models. This was one of them that I included in that video because even though it is a model from the 90s, it is a very nicely detailed model. The stickers are really nicely placed. The stickers have really great designs printed on them, and overall it is a really great model considering it is well over 20 years old. So this model was only produced in the mid-90s for a short period of time. It was distributed as both an in-flight playset and the only form of the twin playset this model was distributed as came with the Northwest 747, and that was in the Northwest and KLM partnership airport playset. That one was the only one of its kind that Realtoy had ever made and distributed. So pretty much what it was the size of a normal playset, but it included both the KLM 747 in this retro livery and the Northwest bowling shoe livery 747. So it was the size of a normal playset, but had two models of the different airlines and had vehicles in it as well. Usually twin airport playsets that are smaller usually only have the two planes. But this was the only playset that was like it, that had two different airlines in the same playset as well as vehicles included as well. So the newer livery 747 is definitely a very well-known model. It was recently discontinued just a couple years ago. I think it was discontinued in 2019. It was definitely made probably well over 15 years, or probably for well over 15 years. The model I have, I do not know when exactly it was produced because it does not have a manufacturing date, but judging from how it does have a model stand, the hole that is in the landing gear, the main landing gear, this one is kind of filled in because it looks like there was a stand that this one used to sit on, but then the stand broke and now the piece is kind of stuck inside of the hole on the landing gear. But that does show that this model is probably made sometime around 2010 or maybe a little after 2010. Or actually probably a little well over 2013 is when they started adding the model stand holes onto the planes. So this model, like I just said before, I do not have the box for it, but the box pretty much looks relatively simple. Definitely, it looks very similar to what the Welly box is now. The box for the Welly KLM 747. I actually do have a new condition Welly KLM 747. I had gotten it off of eBay thinking it was a new condition Realtoy 747, but I should have probably known better, judging from where it was coming from and the other listings that the seller had, because the picture showed the stock image of the new condition KLM 747, but the other listings that they had were of the Welly models, so that was probably a mistake on my part. But still is a really interesting Welly model. So this model is in really good condition apart from a few minor scratches. It does have some cracks on the tail, which usually just depends on, sometimes the paint can be defective on some models, or it could just be depending on where the model was set, if it was outside for a period of time or wherever it was next to. Many different factors that can play a role if the paint is cracked on the tail. Usually it is only cracked on the tail My PIA Pakistan Airlines 777 is the only other model I know of that has cracks on the fuselage part. But cracks on the paint really isn't that big of a deal. It doesn't mean the paint's gonna start chipping away or falling off. It just kind of means that it just kind of is a little more annoying to look at. But otherwise, it doesn't pose any damage threat to the plane. So both of these models have real registration numbers, but the interesting thing about the differences between them is that even though they are very similar in the letterings, they are for completely different aircraft. So the registration number on the older retro livery is PH-BFC, which was a real registration number for a KLM 747-400 that was painted in both the retro livery and was updated into the newer livery. But instead of just using that same registration number, Realtoy decided to change it up. But instead of using another registration number on an actual KLM 747, they decided to use a registration number that is currently for a KLM 777-200, which is PH-BQF. So I thought that was pretty interesting when I went to research the registration numbers just to see if they were real. I kind of assumed that they were going to be real, since most of the time whenever Realtoy does have a registration number on the plane that is pretty noticeable as being an actual one, usually is for a real aircraft that either still flies or flew at some point in time. But I thought that was definitely interesting how they updated the registration number, but they didn't even use one for a KLM 777, especially since this model was made when the KLM 747 was still flying. So I thought that was pretty interesting when I researched that. But so both these models can be found on eBay. Both of them are not extremely rare. The retro livery is definitely more rare than the newer livery. The new livery has become more rare over time just because it was discontinued, but it still is a newly discontinued model, which any newly discontinued model is never that rare. Definitely does increase the value of it a little bit, but never increases it drastically, especially for a model that was pretty accessible. So the retro livery, even though it was only distributed or produced in the 90s, it still is a much more rare than the new livery. But you can find one of these off of eBay every so often. I'd say probably once a month or once every 2 months you can find one off of eBay. Usually they are not for pretty high prices. You can find one probably between $30 to $60. Somewhat on the high end, but I'd say it definitely is worth it for this model, especially if it is new condition. I got this model in new condition and definitely is now one of my favorite models. Before I had gotten it, I didn't really consider it as one of my favorites, or wasn't one that I really thought of as being one of my favorite Realtoy models. But after I got it, and the model is pretty much the best way I can describe it is pretty much a perfect Realtoy model, with the stickers being perfectly placed and the coloring matching, the coloring going really well together on the KLM retro livery. Overall, it is such a really great Realtoy model, and was another reason why I included it in that video as well. Actually was one of the main reasons why I made that video to begin with, was so I can include this model and so it can become more well known. But, so the newer livery 747 is not as rare as the newer one. It still is pretty hard to find, or it can be somewhat difficult to find a new condition one as either a playset or a single plane. I haven't seen any playsets listed recently. Usually any listings I see are usually of single planes. Never for really high prices if you are looking for one of these. The most common listing of these are kind of like the one I got, which is used and either somewhat damaged or pretty much just doesn't have the box or anything, and just the plane. But overall, it definitely is a really nice model. I'm really happy to finally have it in my collection. Definitely was one I was looking for a while. And I was kind of surprised when I originally was able to get the older livery before I got the newer livery, considering the newer livery is usually more common than the older livery. So that pretty much is all of the information for both of these models. So I have reviewed the older livery before, but I do want to do a quick little review of the model since I hadn't posted that video. That video that I posted was well over a year ago now. So the whole entire plane is in the really nice, has the really nice dark blue stripe throughout the entire fuselage. So the front of the plane has the 747 cockpit windows, and then you have the dark blue stripe that starts right along the nose of the plane, right underneath the cockpit windows. throughout the whole entire fuselage. You have the KLM logo, really small lettering right there, still is really nicely detailed. Then you have the KLM Northwest Partnership Reliability logo, the sticker right there. And then throughout the plane, you have the blue stripe that continues, and the registration number with the Dutch flag, and the registration number, which again is PH-BCF. And then you have the KLM logo and the really nice lettering on the tail, on the white sticker on the tail. Both sides, sticker, really nicely placed, really nicely designed. Usually sometimes the stickers can be almost sort of misplaced, but this one is definitely placed really nicely, and then has the sticker again on the tail with the KLM logo, and then the Realtoy logo on the main landing gear, and then you have the silver chrome, the kind of, I guess you could say this is more of a flat silver, or metallic, not metallic, yeah, pretty much like a flat silver on the undercarriage. Overall, ties the whole entire plane together. And the engines don't have any logos on the engines, on the engine casings, or on the wingtips. But still, I think the livery is pretty much all it needs for this model to look really nice. So I do have all the vehicles that came with this model when it was in the playset. Overall, pretty much just has the main ones being the cargo carts. So at the time in the 90s when these playsets were produced, the main designs that were for the airline were pretty much the cargo carts. The other vehicles didn't really have any specific details for the airline apart from just International Airways or International Airport, which was another plane that Realtoy had produced at the time, and same thing for the bus, with just having the International Airport design. And then these signs were all the ones that came in the older playsets. So the box is another main part to this plane as well, with the picture of the actual 747 that this model was produced as, has the actual registration number right there on the side of the plane. And then you have the KLM logo with the airport logo. This was the logo that was on the International Airport, the International Airways 747 playset. Then you have the Worldwide Reliability with the KLM and the Northwest logo right there. And then on the back, you have the boxer image for the retro KLM 747. This model was also produced by Nickname. It was when it was distributed as, when it was distributed as. I think the only two pretty more well-known models, at least, that were distributed by Nickname are probably the most well-known. Not very well-known, but probably for Nickname they are. That were distributed by Nickname was this model and the Caledonian 767, which I also do have, and I posted a video on that. So then moving on to the newer livery 747. So overall, the details for it, between where the livery placements and stuff, is really similar to the older livery, apart from the logo being a little bit larger on the front of the plane and not having the dark blue stripe. But other than that, the coloring is very similar. So up the front, you have the 747 cockpit windows. The blue is a little bit more, I guess you could say the blue is a little bit more brighter, more vibrant on this plane. Has the KLM logo there. The front is a little bit larger than it was on the older retro livery. You do not have the KLM Northwest partnership because this livery came out after Northwest Airlines ceased operations. Then you have the Royal Dutch Airlines displayed right underneath that KLM logo. You have the Air France and KLM partnership right there underneath the front of the plane. You have the SkyTeam logo right there on the top of the fuselage as well, on the top of the nose. You have the main cabin doors throughout the plane, first class cabin door up there, the second floor. KLM logo on the engines and on the winglets. And then you have the third, fourth, and the fifth, the rear cabin doors on throughout the rest of the fuselage. You have the registration number with the Dutch flag and PH-BQF. And then underneath that, you have, I believe that is, I'm not sure what that says. It kind of is rubbed off. I don't know if that says Royal Dutch Airlines again, or what that says. I have to type that out in here because I don't really know what that says. But anyway, has the KLM logo again on the tail. This one was painted fully with the white tail. This model is fully painted, and I forgot to mention that in the beginning of this video. This model was only made as a fully painted model, just like, I think it was distributed by the Socatec or something. I think that's what this model was distributed as. or Premier Planes is what it was distributed as. So yeah, pretty much is the review for the whole plane. Actually, they did incorporate the dark blue stripe. It is very small, but it's pretty much where the undercarriage connects to the fuselage. Still is the same exact coloring, I think. Pretty much same coloring, except the stripe, they didn't do a nice job with somewhat incorporating it. It still is really small, though. There actually is a newer livery. There was the updated livery on the 747, on the real 747. Realtoy never updated their model, but on the 747, the newer livery did have the stripe being a little bit more kind of in a wavy design rather than just flat straight across the plane. On the back, on the undercarriage, you have the Realtoy logo on the main landing gear, and then you have the hole where the model stand used to sit, and the broken piece where that is kind of stuck in there now. And then the undercarriage is the same color as the wings are, in that kind of whitish, off-white, grayish, whitish coloring right there. So pretty much is all for this review video. Overall, these are two really great models. Probably in the future, once I get the painted KLM 787, I will do a full collection video just going through all of the KLM models that were produced. I think that is the only other one that I need. There also is the UK version, but I still need to get that one as well. But once I get those, I will have all the KLM models. These are really the two main KLM models that Realtoy had produced, the older livery and then the newer livery. Overall, I think these models really look great together. I really like the KLM livery. I think they did a great job with the, Realtoy did a great job with manufacturing both the planes. Both of them have, the new livery has the really great print on it being fully painted, and then the older livery has the sticker placement really good. I mean, even at certain angles, you can even tell that this plane is stickers, apart from the tail, since the tail still has the main painted. It was mainly painted in the blue, the vibrant blue, the blue coloring that is the same as the fuselage, and just has the white sticker on it, but still is really nice. Overall, two really great Realtoy models. I highly suggest getting if you don't have it. These are two models that some of my favorites in my collection. So I hope you all enjoyed this video, and thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.